With us now to talk about this, Victoria de Francesco Soto, Dean of the Clinton School of Public Service at the University of Arkansas, and an MSNBC contributor, and in El Paso, Fernando García, Executive Director of the organization Border Network for Human Rights. Fernando, what are you seeing on the streets of El Paso right now?
It's exactly what you described, Jose. We had a very dangerous, I would say, in humanitarian crisis. I spent the last few days, both in Juarez and in El Paso, observing and in supporting migrants that are in the street under freezing conditions with no winter clothing, and also no water, no food, no way to stay. So I think this is a very difficult situation that many families are going through, and it also represents a major failure of different administrations in terms of providing some kind of welcoming infrastructure that we don't have at the border in El Paso specifically.
And Fernando, I mean, these are men, women, and children who were really forced to leave their countries. Many of them have dealt with horrendous conditions as they've made the long journey to the U.S. border. They've been exploited, just destroyed in many ways. What are you seeing? Who are these people? And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that these are human beings. These are men, women, and children. Who are they, Fernando?
It is very important to humanize the issue because everybody's talking about numbers, and they are not watching people at the border as human beings, as you have described. I mean, many of them, they come for at least 3 different regions. Yes, there's the historic group that comes to the border looking for an economic opportunity because there's crisis in their communities, economic depression. The other sector that is coming, it is fleeing violent conditions, corrupt governments, dictatorships, seeking for asylum or refugee. And then you have people that are fleeing also the causes of climate change. So I think you have an expanded flows of immigrants, that specifically the ones that we have right now are Venezuelans, Nicaraguans coming from these regimes that actually, they thought the United States would welcome them because they were fleeing these dictatorships there.
Victoria, this humanitarian crisis has been going on for months now. El Paso is now ground zero, but I'm just wondering, where's the urgency, right, of folks? And Fernando was talking about failures of a lot of administrations. But where's the urgency, Victoria, on what's happening to these people? It just seems like they're on their own.
Jose, I was born and raised on the border. I have been studying immigration and the border for over 20 years. And I really think that this moment is the greatest moment that I have ever seen. My heart aches, and it especially aches because I'm not seeing any real resolution being put on the table. And my greatest worry is that we're losing the humanity, that we're getting used to and accustomed to just seeing human suffering at the border. So I think it's at the peak in terms of crisis mode, but I'm worried that our lawmakers and our public consciousness is not grasping the need to do something, and we actually can do something about it. There's immigration policy that can help folks at the border also stem the tide from countries understanding that immigration is push and pull. Something can be done. So I think we have to not let ourselves lose hope.
But Victoria, doesn't it seem in a way like U.S. policy is being set by court decisions on the one hand, and then by pressure of other countries' regimes that decide how to use their own people as human pawns, and when to let them go, when to, how many to let go? It just seems like, where is immigration policy?
Look, Jose, you're absolutely right on those fronts. However, I do think that we can stem the courts if we allow the folks here in our Congress to do something, if we pressure them. On the flip side, yes, there are those countries like Venezuela that just won't cooperate with us. But there are countries like Mexico, there are countries like Guatemala, Costa Rica, where we can work with them. So again, We need to figure out where we can work. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but we can figure out ways to do incremental change.
Fernando, what do we need to know about what's happening at that humanitarian crisis? How can we all help you, Fernando, and others?
You know, I think it is important to recognize that what I mentioned, that this administration also has big responsibility on not only on delivering on immigration reform promises, but also in building necessary welcoming infrastructure at the border. We've been warning since 2 years ago the need to have other kind of resources that are not just detention centers or the expansion of border walls or border patrol, but to have more welcoming processing infrastructure. New Ellis Island welcoming centers. We need to deploy immediately federal resources directed by the federal government. There is this expectation that NGOs like ourselves or local governments will resolve this issue. That is not going to happen. That is not sustainable. We need the federal government to step up immediately and start setting up these welcoming centers.
Fernando Garcia and Victoria de Francesco Soto, I thank you both so much for being with us this morning.